this week on the Steelers Talk Live show, we did a fan-led mock draft, and today I'm going to be reacting to the results of that mock draft, and at the end of it, I'm going to grade your guys' mock draft, all right? Remember, this isn't my mock, this is yours, all right? So let's get into today's action today, but before we do, go ahead and click that subscribe button because we have our live shows every single Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we go over the latest news and rumors of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We get your questions for every mailbag. This week's mailbag is going to be coming out on Sunday, by the way, so get ready for that. So make sure you click that subscribe button right now to never miss any of our free content, any of our watch parties, any of our live shows, including my mock draft that just hit this week. So today we're going to be going over your mock draft, but mine is currently up on the channel right now, my 4.0 version. You can check it out right now by clicking the link in the comments and description of today's show. So let's start with the first round selection that you guys voted on, which is Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon. Now, I think JPJ is one hell of a player. I think that he is going to be an amazing player in this league. I think that if Arthur Smith could build a center in a lab, it would be Jackson Powers Johnson. He's got the size. He's got strength. He's got agility. He's got technique in both pass protection and run blocking. All right, this guy can definitely get to the second level and clear out some linebackers. Let me tell you that much. All right, but is he worth that first selection for the Pittsburgh Steelers? More than enough to go out and get an offensive tackle, all right? Throughout this entire mock draft, 0 offensive tackles are taken. All right, so is it worth getting Jackson Powers Johnson over drafting an offensive tackle in round 1 and then maybe getting a Cedric Van Pran or a Zach Frazier or maybe even a Graham Barton in the second round? Bunch of really good day 1 starting centers in this year's class. A lot of guys you can get on day 2 of the NFL draft this year. So as much as I like Jackson Powers Johnson, as much as I think he would be a success here in Pittsburgh, personally, if the offensive tackle position has not been addressed by the draft, I think the best way to address it is to take a tackle and not a center. Then in round 2, once again, ignoring offensive tackle, instead going defensive tackle here with Florida State's Braden Fiske to be a rotational interior defensive tackle moving forward. Because right now, your defensive line, you got Larry Ogunjobi at the 5 technique, Cam Hayward at the 3 technique, and Keanu Benton at the nose tackle. And listen, man, Braden Fiske, I love him as a prospect, man. You look at his relative athletic score, it's about as high as you could possibly get. It's a 9.89 out of 10, which is just unbelievable, man. Like, this guy is athletic as all get out. He absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl. And I do think that he's going to be probably a round 2 pick, so this is around where he's going to go. But for me, I do think it's a little early for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be drafting a defensive tackle who's going to be playing in like an Armon Watts kind of role, because you have Cam Hayward for another year. Now, Braden Fiske might replace Cam Hayward long term, but there's a lot of guys in this draft that you could get in round 3 or round 4, or potentially even round 5 that could potentially take that three technique spot in the future with the proper guidance. And although I believe in Braden Fiske, and I think that he would be an excellent addition to this defensive line and would make this pass rush even scarier, there's still a bunch of needs here for the Pittsburgh Steelers that we need guys to start in next year, offensive tackle being probably chief among them, that we're not addressing here early in this mock draft. Now, coming up here, rounds 3 through 7 of the fan-led mock draft we did here on Steelers Talk this week. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. And guys, the Russell Wilson era is officially here. And if you think Russ is going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can go chatsports.com/Russ to get your officially licensed Russell Wilson Pittsburgh Steelers jersey today. From our friends at Fanatics. Again, use our link, chatsports.com/Russ, to let them know that we sent you. Then in round 3, getting another rotational piece on defense, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at inside linebacker. And this is another guy, man, where I'm like, I love the player. I have nothing against the player. But it's like, if you draft an inside linebacker in round 3, then he's going to be a rotational piece in this rotation, all right? He's not going to be a day 1 every down starter. And listen, you can get guys that can play a rotational role later in the draft. You don't have to draft Jeremiah Trotter Jr. here in the 3rd, and we're still ignoring wide receiver. We're still ignoring offensive tackle, and instead we're going for a low-value position here that the Steelers already kind of have locked down. I mean, you got Patrick Queen as your number one guy that you just brought in. He was an All-Pro last year. Landon Roberts played really well for you last year in this defense. He's your number two guy. And then right now, Cole Holcomb is your rotational guy. Now, you only have 4 guys in the room right now, so you definitely want to add depth, all right? I don't have a problem with taking linebacker in a mock draft, but if you're taking one early over really key positions of need like offensive tackle and wide receiver, I'm not quite sure where that thinking goes, because unless you're going to straight up release Cole Holcomb, I mean, you're putting Jeremiah Trotter in this room as the 4th linebacker that's barely or ever going to hit the field in 2024. So I can't say I understand that move right there, even though Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is a very good player. Then also in round 3, we take a corner here. It's about time we address corner with a guy that I actually think is a really good fit for this team. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. out of Louisville. I've kind of been mocking Renardo Green out of Florida State to the Steelers lately, but honestly, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. would be just as good in my opinion. He is long. He is great in press coverage. He dominated the Senior Bowl against some of the top receivers in the country. I like this pick, right? And this is the first pick that I can look at and be like, you know what? This is probably a pick that I would make in one of my mock drafts. So kudos to you guys. This one's a good one. So before we get into the day 3 picks here, go ahead and click that thumbs up icon if you're having a good time with us here on Steelers Talk, breaking down the fan-led mock draft. Hear from you, the fans of Steelers Talk. Then in round 4, another good pick that I like here, Malik Washington, wide receiver out of Virginia. I've been mocking Washington to the Steelers in round 4 for probably every single mock draft except for one to this point in the offseason. So you guys, that has clearly rubbed off on you. And Malik Washington is absolutely a value here in round 4. I kind of doubt he's going to make it here just because I think he's that good of a player. He's a good run blocker at his size, really good route runner, great after the catch. I think he's a perfect fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arthur Smith are looking for in a slot wide receiver. And he's definitely one of my guys because in a loaded wide receiver class, you can afford to address wide receiver a bit later, especially if you get a guy like Brandon Ayuk via a trade this offseason. And I really think that Malik Washington could be one hell of a player for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. Then we go all the way down to round 6 here with Jaylan Ford, inside linebacker out of Texas, a guy that I'm really a big fan of. I took him in my last mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers because this guy could be that rotational piece that can come in on third downs and kind of be like a pass coverage linebacker, give Patrick Queen or a Landon Roberts a break. You know, in round 6, he's undersized. He's not the best run defender in the world, but he's really good in pass coverage. And I think he can do that in a rotational role right away. And if you're getting somebody like that in round 6, I think that's one hell of a value here. So good job here, Steelers Nation. You guys knocked that one out of the park. But man, here in round 6, the last pick, I think this one might be my favorite pick. I'm not going to lie. Marilyn Krieger, shout out to you, sends in a $10 super chat to select Jack Sperry, long snapper out of Mount Mercy University. And I got to tell you, man, this guy is a sleeper if I've ever heard one in my life. He's got long arms, long legs. You know, he has to fill out a little bit. You know, he's kind of skinny, all right, but he can run like a deer. He can go down there as the gunner. And man, this guy is really, really good in the special teams part of the game. More than worth a 6th-round pick, if you ask me. Hope you're listening, Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, that's our mock draft haul today from the fan-led mock draft. Jackson Powers Johnson in the 1st round, your future center. Then you get Braden Fiske to potentially replace Cam Hayward. Moving forward, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. to fill out the inside linebacker room. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. adding another young, athletic press man corner to the fold here. Malik Washington as a nice receiving piece to add to Russell Wilson's arsenal in 2024. Jaylan Ford is a nice a rotational piece as a pass defender in this defense. And then Jack Sperry, the best long snapper in the 2024 NFL Draft out of NAIA, Mount Mercy University. Shout out to my Mustangs. So grade this mock draft in your opinion. Again, this isn't my mock. This is a fan-led mock draft. So let me know. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know how you guys think you guys did down there in the comment section. Keep in mind, though, no offensive tackle taken in this draft and 2 inside linebackers taken, even though that you have Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts, and Patrick Queen all on the roster. So my grade here is I'm going to give it a B-. I mean, the Jack Sperry pick really makes the difference for me. Other than that, it would be probably a D+. But no, if we're being real, I do like Jackson Powers Johnson. I like the players that you're adding here in this mock draft. I really do. but I think maybe the timing could be a little bit off on some of these moves. And I think that you have to address offensive tackle at some point. I do not want to run it back with Dan Moore Jr. for yet another season. I want to get a replacement, whether that be in free agency or whether that be in the draft. And because right now the Steelers haven't addressed it in free agency, as far as I'm concerned, every Steelers mock draft out there should have an offensive tackle taken at some point within the first 3 rounds, period. All right, so I appreciate every single person that voted on this week's fan-led mock draft. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now for more Steelers mock drafts and draft coverage in general all throughout the 2024 offseason.